When they start out they always begin the same. She started by proving that it was no use to give the women the ballot because if they did have it they would not use it, and she had statistics to prove it. If we would not use it then I really cannot see the harm of giving it to us. We would not hurt anybody with it, and what an easy way for you men to get rid of us. No more suffrage meetings, never any nagging you again. No one could blame you for anything that went wrong with the town, if it did not run right. All you would have to say is, you have the power, why don't you go ahead and clean up? Then the young lady, unfortunately for her first argument, proved by statistics, of which she had many. The awful results which happened where women did have the ballot. What awful laws have been brought about. By women's vote. The conditions that prevail in the homes and how deeply women get interested in politics. Because women are hysterical, and we cannot think of anything else, we just forget our families. Cease to care for our children, cease to love our husbands, and just go to the polls and vote and keep on. Voting for 10 hours a day 365 days in the year, never let up. If we ever get to the polls once you will never get us home. So that the women will not vote at all, and they will not do anything but vote. Now these are two very strong anti-suffrage arguments, and they can prove them by figures. Then they will tell you that if women are permitted to vote it will be a great expense, and no. Use because wives will vote just as their husbands do. Even if we have no husbands. That would not affect the result because we would vote just as our husbands would vote if we had one. How I wish the anti-suffragists could make the men believe that. If they could make men believe that the women would vote just as they wanted them to, do you think we would ever have to make another speech or hold another meeting? We would have to vote whether we wanted to or not. And then the very one who will tell you that women will vote just as their husbands do will tell you in 5 minutes that they will not vote as their husbands will, and then the discord in the homes, and the divorce. Why, they have discovered that in Colorado there are more divorces than there were before women began to vote. But they have forgotten to tell you that there are 4 times as many people in Colorado today as there were when women began to vote, and that may have some effect. Particularly as these people went from the East. Then they will tell you all the trouble that happens in the home. A gentleman told me that in California missing text, and when he was talking I had a wonderful thing pass through my mind. Because he said that he and his wife had lived together for 20 years and never had a difference in opinion in the whole 20 years, and he was afraid if women began to vote that his wife would vote differently from him, and then that beautiful harmony which they had had for 20 years would be broken. And all the time he was talking I could not help wondering which was the idiot, because I knew that no intelligent human beings could live together for 20 years and not have a differences of opinion. All the time he was talking I looked at that splendid type of manhood and thought, how would a man feel being tagged up by a little woman for 20 years saying, "Me too, me too"? I would not want to live in a house with a human being for 20 years who agreed with everything I said. The stagnation of a frog pond would be hilarious compared to that. What a reflection. Is that on men? If we should say that about men, we would never hear the last of it. Now it may be that the kind of men being that the anti-suffragists live with is that kind. But they are not the kind we live with, and we could not do it. Great big overgrown babies. Cannot be disputed without having a row. While we do not believe that men are saints, by any means, we do. Believe that the average American man is a fairly good sort of fellow. In fact, my theory of the whole matter is exactly opposite. Because instead of believing that men and women will quarrel, I think just the opposite thing will happen. I think just about 6 weeks before election a sort of honeymoon will start, and it will continue. Until they will think they are again hanging over the gate, all in order to get each other's votes. When men want each other's votes, they do not go up and knock them down. They are very solicitous of each other. If they are thirsty or need a smoke or missing text, well, we don't worry about home. The husband and wife who are quarreling after the vote are quarreling now. Then the other belief that the women would not vote if they had a vote and would not do anything. Else. And would vote just as their husbands vote, and would not vote like their husbands. That women. Have so many burdens that they cannot bear another burden, and that women are the leisure class. I remember having Reverend Dr. Abbott speak before the anti-suffrage meeting in Brooklyn, and he stated that if women were permitted to vote, we would not have so much time for charity and philanthropy. And I would like to say, thank God, there will not be so much need of charity and philanthropy. The end and aim of the suffrage is not to furnish an opportunity for excellent old ladies to be charitable. There are two words that we ought to be able to get along without, and they are charity and philanthropy. They are not needed in a republic. If we put in the word opportunity instead, that is what republics stand for. Our doctrine is not to extend the length of our bread lines or the size of our soup kitchens. What we need is for men to have the opportunity to buy their own bread and eat their own soup. We women have used up our lives and strength in fool charities. And we have made more paupers than we have ever helped by the folly of our charities and philanthropies. The unorganized methods by which we deal with the conditions of society, and instead of giving people charity we must learn to give them an opportunity to develop and make. Themselves capable of earning the bread. No human being has the right to live without toil. Toil of some kind. And that old theory that we used to hear, the world owes a man a living, never was true and never will be true. This world does not owe anybody a living. What it does owe to every human being is the opportunity to earn a living. We have a right to the opportunity and then the right to the living thereafter. We want it? No woman. Any more than a man, has the right to live an idle life in this world. We must learn to give back something for the space occupied, and we must do our duty wherever duty calls. And the woman herself must decide where her duty calls, just as a man does. Now they tell us we should not vote because we have not the time. We are so burdened that we should not have any more burdens. Then, if that is so, I think we ought to allow the women to vote instead of the men. Since we pay a man anywhere from a third to a half more than we do women, it would. Be better to use up the cheap time of the women instead of the dear time of the men. And talking about time, you would think it took about a week to vote. A dear, good friend of mine in Omaha said, "Now Miss Shaw," and she held up her child in her arms, "is not this my job?" I said it certainly is, and then she said, "How can I go to the polls and vote and neglect my baby?" I said, "Has your husband a job?" And she said, "Why, you know he has." I did know it. He was a banker and a very busy one. I said, "Yet your husband said he was going to leave husband and go down to the polls and vote." And she said, "Oh yes, he is so very interested in election." Then I said, "What an advantage you have over your husband." He has to leave his job and you can take your job with you, and you do not need to neglect your job. Is it not strange that the only time a woman might neglect her baby is on election day? And then the dear old aunties hold up their hands and say, "You have neglected your baby." A woman can belong to a whist club and go once a week and play whist, she cannot take her baby to the whist club, and she has to keep whist herself without trying to keep a baby whist. She can go to the theater. to church or a picnic and no one is worrying about the baby, but to vote and everyone cries out about the neglect. You would think on election day that a woman grabbed up her baby and started out and just dropped it somewhere and paid no attention to it. It used to be asked when we had the question missing text box, who will take care of the babies? I did not know what person could be got to take care of all the babies. So I thought I would go out west and find out. I went to Denver and I found that they took care of their babies just the same on election day as they did on every other day. They took their baby along with them, when they went to put a letter in a box. They took their baby along and when they went to put their ballot in the box they took their baby along. If the mother had to stand in line and the baby got restless she would joggle. The go-kart and when she went in to vote a neighbor would joggle the go-kart and if there was no neighbor there was the candidate and he would joggle the cart. That is one day in the year when you can get 100 people to take care of any number of babies. I have never worried about the babies on election day since that time. Then the people will tell you that women are so burdened with their duties that they cannot vote. And they will tell you that women are the leisure class and the men are worked to death. But the funniest argument of the lady who followed me about in the West, out there they were great in the temperance question. And she declared that we were not prohibition, or she declared that we were. Now in North Dakota, which is one of